There's a lot of humanitarian aid that's on the tarmac still, just hasn't been able to be picked up. It's waiting for delivery and distribution within the city.
Keith, for the longest time, a stand-up fetal monitor was here near our live location until someone gingerly walked it over to the side. But that kind of thing is happening. I can't emphasize how early it is in all of this, and yet not far from here the tragedy unfolds.
Brian, I've been struck in your early reporting from there, and along with Ann's, by one point in particular, which I'd like you to expand upon, and I don't want to try to create a problem out of nowhere. But there's something salient in here, potentially disturbing, the crowds at the perimeters of the airport. Is desperation beginning to be a factor here with the destruction of the response, the ordinary triage sense of response to something like this? If shelter and rescue and exit is not forthcoming quickly, could we see the prospect of the healthy survivors essentially trying to force their way, understandably, into some kind of relief, some place of relief?
Oh, we've seen civil unrest and the loss of control by what passes for everyday government here many times over the past few decades. It's when the news media usually come to Haiti, and then the public attention gets focused on it again, and then we go off to other things. This is one of those times. This nation every day is this far from spiraling out of control. You take people who have next to nothing and then reduce that to nothing and see what happens.
I think that's absolutely true. I think that there is a real risk here. I think that there is an expectation that that could happen, Keith. I think it's a very good question, and I know you don't want to create trouble by asking that question, but I think it's a fair question, and I think really the best person to really answer that question is actually you, dear, because you understand, you've covered some of these kinds of periods of unrest. How long do you think people are going to be willing to wait without food, without shelter, enduring these aftershocks?
I hate to sound so pessimistic. Because they have done without for so long, they're almost used to this, but not at this level. I think the real question is, and it may have something to do with a woman that I spoke to here who is from upstate New York, and that is her sense of anarchy beginning to set in. People who are camped out tonight are feel for their own safety. If they have a place to sleep and they have one belonging with them, it may turn out that somebody else wants that belonging from them, because people are desperate and they need water. I mean, these are very basic things that people need. If you have a bottle of water and somebody wants it, it's very possible somebody's going to take it with force. And that's, I think, the real problem. Look, there can be an incredible airlift here, and there will be. Getting it out will be the difficult thing. Fortunately, when I flew over, a lot of the roads are still passable, so they will be able to get it. But this country doesn't have a whole lot of structure for trucks. There's not a lot of trucks here. Organizing the trucks here, getting that airlift in of the vehicles to get out, it's going to take some time. If the Marines bring in an expeditionary force, as they're talking about possibly doing, they'll have to land and bring trucks in, because it's one thing to stack it all up here, getting it out to the people in this city. If they live up in the hills, sure, they could walk all the way down here to this airport, but they're not going to. It would not be a good distribution point. It's going to be difficult. It's going to take days, if not weeks, to get this stuff in place, and that's where the real problem begins.
So, Keith, it's a grim picture.
Kerry Sanders, I have one question for you based on what you saw. You've heard these wild estimates of ranging from, at the very low end, a few thousand fatalities to this extraordinary estimate by a senator in Haiti of perhaps 500,000. Is the latter, the horrible upside figure, is that implausible based on what you saw, or is there no way even to estimate based on your aerial tour of Port-au-Prince?
I think it's too early to say. It may turn out to be true. It may be a wild number. This is a country that would like to tell you how many people live here, but they don't even have a census to tell you how many people live here. Trying to find out how many people died here is it will probably never fully happen. Just getting the rubble removed from where people were crushed could take an extremely long time. This is a country where when something falls and breaks, it's just maybe just left there. And so people who died in this earthquake, they may be in their graves now.
Brian, sum this up for me. We have spoken under the saddest of circumstances with you in Banda Aceh and you in New Orleans and everywhere else. Is there any way yet to assess overall where this fits in that horrible kaleidoscope of our recent history?
No, not yet. And I was just discussing Banda Aceh this evening with a producer for Reuters Television who was also there. But you get that feeling. He just took a brief trip into the center of Port-au-Prince, and it's stomach turning. You can't. I've always said you kind of have to put it off in a box because it doesn't have any bearing on the life we fly back into and maintain day to day in the United States. This is something you see in places like this after horrible natural disasters like this.
No better word describes it than that, horrible. Brian Williams, Ann Curry, Al Roker, Kerry Sanders. Terrific reporting under dire circumstances. We appreciate the time greatly, and our best wishes to you and the entire crew there.